Hello, welcome to Between Two Kegs. My name is Zach Fick, and I've got here a great gentleman into the craft beer industry, Fritz Rahr. Fritz, welcome to the show.
Morning.
Rahr and Sons Brewery. Tell us a little about yourself and Rahr and Sons.
Well, I'm a kid from Minnesota. Came down to Texas, went to school in Texas, but I grew up in the beer industry. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a family that now has a little over 170 years in the beer industry. My great-great-grandfather came over from Germany in 1847, and he set up the first lager brewery in the state of Wisconsin. And we also made our own malt because there wasn't a malt supply nearby. And pretty soon, we made so much malt that we started selling that malt into the secondary market for other breweries. So other breweries came to the Manitowoc area. And before long, we had 3 breweries and 3 malting facilities in Wisconsin. And right around Prohibition, they decided to get out of brewing because of what they saw coming down the pipeline, and just continued making malt for beer. And then when Prohibition hit, they converted over to flour milling and other grain handling items. And after Prohibition was repealed, they just went right back into malting barley for beer. And that's what they still do today. So I'm a 5th generation brewer, and now that my kids are both working here at the brewery, I'm proud to say that the Rahrs are now into their 6th generation of brewing beer. So I came down to Texas for school. Right after graduating from TCU, I kind of got railroaded into the proverbial railroad business, literally, and worked that for about 12 years. And I kind of got fed up with the corporate world, didn't like what happened in that whole setting with how people reacted to other people. And I thought to myself, and if I'm going to be that miserable, I want to have my own company where I can effectively make change to make things better for everybody. And I have a brewing degree from the Siebel Institute. I grew up in a beer family and was always around beer, so it seemed like a natural progression for me to open up a brewery. And to be perfectly honest, we were living down in Houston, and we were visiting the St. Arnold's Brewery and going through those tours. And we just got really turned on by what was happening down there. So we made the decision to come up to Fort Worth and open up the brewery here, where, of course, where I went to school. That year was 2004. So summer of 2003 was when I resigned from the railroad and really started putting the business plan together and raising money and funds. And February of 2004, we rented this facility and started buying equipment. We bought the brew house from the old, from Abita. It was their startup brewery, Abita Brewery out of Abita Springs, Louisiana. And by September, we were selling beer. So it was one of those things. I joke around with people that if I actually gave it 5 extra minutes of thought, I would have never made this leap of faith into the beer industry. It was just one of those things where it was like, what the hell, let's just go do it. And we did. We just jumped in with 2 feet. We had no idea what was going to happen, how it was going to play out. We made a whole bunch of errors in the first couple of years because we had no idea literally what we were doing. But we fought through all that strife and the trials and tribulations of life, and 14 years later, we're still here.
With a vengeance.
With a vengeance.
You mentioned 2004. Craft beer wasn't much in Dallas. I don't remember, or Fort Worth at that.
No, there wasn't. Actually, Houston kind of had their thing going with St. Arnold's. They were probably into their 7th or 8th or 10th year by that time. Austin, of course, had its craft beer thing going, but it was always that kind of environment down there anyways. But up here it was nothing. It was Bud Miller Coors, and to be perfectly honest, just a little bit of Shiner. And every place only had about 4 or 5 taps, and it was Bud Miller Coors, and then maybe a Shiner, maybe a Stella or a Guinness tap, or another import of some kind. So it was incredibly difficult to maintain a tap. It wasn't hard to get into a bar and have them put you on tap, because Fort Worth is a very giving and supporting community to its local businesses. So we would go in and we'd sell in a keg, and we'd sell in 2 kegs, and they would rip through those 2 kegs in a couple days or a week, and we'd go back in and find out that we're now off tap. And we would ask why, and they said, well, we didn't really intend to keep you on full time. We just wanted to help you out, get you some exposure, et cetera, et cetera. So gaining the taps initially wasn't a problem, but maintaining and keeping taps was extremely hard. And then, so, the first 4 or 5 years was really difficult. But right around 2009, it was like Mother Nature flipped the craft beer switch in North Texas, and it just blew up, and beer bars were opening. A few other breweries were starting to come into play up here in this area, and everyone started jumping on this craft beer bandwagon, and we just started experiencing, as other breweries did, this exponential growth for the next 2 or 3 years.
Rahr has a big name. Fritz Rahr, probably one of the coolest, greatest names in the industry right now. And that's short for Frederick, right?
It's short for Frederick, yes.
Just want to put that on record.
Friedrich Wilhelm Rahr.
That's as German as it gets.
That's right.
But Rahr, you do more than just craft beer. And we're in your brewery right now with a lot of your barrels of barrel-aged beers that I certainly want to ask you a few more questions about that in a bit. But, you do help a lot of other breweries. I've given a few brewery tours in my time, and people ask the question, why do you buy your beer from Rahr and Sons? And that's because of the malt. I think a lot of small craft breweries and even the bigger ones can thank you and your family over the years for busting their tail back in the day.
Yeah, it's fun. When I get to go out in the community all over the country, even in other countries sometimes, I'll walk into a brew pub or a small brewery, and I'll see bags of Rahr malt from my family there, and I think that's just the neatest thing in the world. It's an instant conversation piece with the people I'm with, and they always like to start asking me questions, and I always love talking about the Rahr story because there is so much rich brewing and malting history there over the last 170 years. It's really amazing.
You're almost like a Rockefeller in the industry. Well, Fritz, a little bit about your beer. Now, your beer coming in from Fort Worth, which I like to believe is the capital of Cowboy, Texas.
A little Cowtown action.
Cowtown action, you bet. So how have you incorporated that brand, your brand, into the Cowtown of Texas? And are you a cowboy?
Well, I'm probably one of those wannabe cowboys. But, we came back to Fort Worth because we had support of family, and we had two small kids. Texas is a huge market. We thought that we could go around Texas and kind of get involved in Texas and local communities and only have to deal with one set of legislation issues, one set of laws, Texas, and not have to go into multiple states right away because of the geographic distances to the markets that we would have been in the Minneapolis area. So we chose to come back to Fort Worth, where I went to school, knew the area, kind of thought I knew the market, and as I later found out, it's a lot different than knowing the market and actually going out and drinking in bars. So we came back here and opened up the brewery. We have a pretty good German heritage in our family. There's a lot of German in Fort Worth. And we were a family brewery. We were a family brewery with 2 kids, and Fort Worth just had that family feel. So we wanted to indenture ourselves with the community as best as we possibly could. So, we like to host as many charity events. We like to give back to the community as much as possible. And so we just try to become maybe just a little part of what Fort Worth was all about, and hopefully have that feeling be embraced by the city in itself. And I think, we've been very fortunate to actually have that happen. And a lot of it's been organic, over many, many years of just doing what we love to do, and that's make beer, see people's smiles on their face after they drink our beer, and do a lot of stuff around town and give back to the community where we get involved and really enjoy the things that we enjoy doing. My oldest just came on full-time about 2-3 months ago as a full-time cellarman. He's in brewing school doing the advanced brewer studies at Siebel Institute, but he still gets to work here because he actually has a practical brewery to do a lot of his studies in, so he does the rest of it online. And then my youngest is here actually right now. He's working the keg line and trying to figure out if he wants to stay on full-time or go back to school. But it's fun. The name of our company has always been Rahr and Sons. And 14, 15 years ago, you always have the thought in the back of your head that maybe one day these little rugrats are going to grow up and actually be working side by side. And those days are now here. And I can't be happier. This is the most exciting thing, to be working side by side with your kids in the operation and see the success and the passion grow within themselves. And I can't think of a neater situation to be in. So,
well, what a blessed opportunity, and almost you're kind of a fortune teller. I mean, you almost put them in the shoes for them in a way.
It's weird how things have kind of worked out. You have this vision when you first open up the company, and you know, I at least envisioned out to when they would be in their early 20s working at the brewery. So I guess I need to start seeing what the vision is going to be like another 15, 20 years down the road. So
my first beer was from your brewery was Ugly Pug. Mm-hmm. It was my favorite beer. It was one of your first beers, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. It's a great name.
Every pug is ugly.
Every pug's ugly.
And
but in kind of a cute way, right?
Yeah, very cute, very cute.
Well, there's a great story behind the name of that.
Well, I've got to hear that story now.
So it was about a year or two before I opened up the brewery, and I was at my mother-in-law's house for Thanksgiving, and she has a little pug dog named Oscar. And, you know, this is before we had any inclinations of really starting a brewery, but we were drinking some homebrew that we had made. And I walked in, and it's Thursday, so there's a football game on TV, right? And there's the pug dog, Oscar, sitting in a chair. But he wasn't sitting in a chair on, you know, his haunches with his front legs like this, like a normal dog. He was lounging, laying back in kind of a slouched position in the corner of the couch. Looked like he was watching TV. So if he had the remote control and a beer on Thanksgiving, it would have been the perfect time for him. But I walked by, and you can imagine what a male dog looks like sitting like this, right? So I looked at my mother-in-law and I said, God bless you, but that is one ugly pug. And you could hear a pin drop. And we were like, God, if we ever opened a brewery, ha ha ha, like if we ever opened a brewery, you should name a dark beer Ugly Pug. And we laughed about it, we joked about it, not really giving it much thought. And then voila, 2 years later, we're opening up a brewery. So of course, our black lager was going to be named Ugly Pug.
That's a great story.
Yeah. So that's kind of how
so you got an ugly pug in the family.
Ugly Pug, but Oscar's no longer with us. So yeah, he died. And you know, interesting fact, we actually, you know, we got him stuffed. And he sits up on top of the bar. So people, no, I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding. We actually got him cremated. Okay. And now in every batch of Ugly Pug, it's just a little bit. It gives it this roasty flavor and the.
No wonder I like that.
I'm kidding.
No, that makes sense.
No, he's actually buried out by Lake Weatherford with 2 big slices of pizza because pizza was his favorite thing to eat. So when he passed away, we made sure that he went and got some pizza right before he died, and he ate some pizza. And then we took a couple more slices, and we buried him with pizza. So that's Oscar the Ugly Pug story.
That's a great one.
It's a great story.
What a true exciting moment. You know, it sounds like you and your family, and not just your immediate family, but your brewing family, all the employees, the staff that work here, and those that help deliver your beer across the state, really enjoy your company and your enthusiasm. That's a rare thing in this industry, because you can find yourself, you know, at the end of the day, you're just a manufacturing plant.
Right.
But, you know, the last 10, 15 years, this has become quite of a marketing business.
It really is marketing. It's you know, more so than I ever thought. But really what we try to do here is, you know, we make a lot of really, really good beers. You know, sometimes a lot of people say Rahr beer is good, but they don't make anything really too terribly exciting that just blows you away from a standpoint of high alcohol and big dark beers. And, you know, the thing is, you know, we make beers that you can drink a lot of and really enjoy, and I think the quality speaks for itself. And people ask me what is the most important thing to me working at the brewery, and I said the most important thing for me is when I see someone come into the tour, and maybe it's one of their first times, and we pour them a beer, and they take a sip, and they know they don't know that you're looking at them. They don't even know they're doing it. And a big smile comes across their face. And they look at the beer and they kind of do this little nod and they take another sip and they smile. And then they look at one of their friends and they say, this is really good beer. You know, in the end, that's what it's all about. It's about making good beer. It's about putting smiles on people's faces. You know, beer is social. Beer is a very social animal. You know, I've been to other places and stuff, and people get a beer and they just sit and drink it. They don't have any emotion towards it. But I think it's really important, and it's special to me when I do see that happen, and I see it all the time, thank God. And that's the neat thing about being in the beer business, is making other people happy and putting smiles on people's faces. And I'm blown away by people who come back, and it's not easy sometimes finding a parking space. And you know, you'll get 5, 6, 7, 800 people in here for basically a 2.5, 3 hour period. And we've never had a fight, we've never had any kind of violence, nothing like that. Even barely any vandalism. I can't even really think of anything. And everyone just comes in, and what's really neat is they walk in and they feel, and we want them to feel, you know, part of the family. They take ownership in their brewery. They walk in and it's like, this is my brewery. I'm going to take, and then they take care of it and they respect it and they respect everybody else. And it's really 800 people all hanging out, talking beer, talking family, talking sports, talking whatever. And it's just a really neat environment to be around. You can't find a bigger cut of demographics across the country with different people, and they're here for one thing in common, and that is fellowship, good beer, and a passion for craft beer, and a passion for being a part of something local, something that they can wrap their arms around and actually call their own. And I think that's what's really neat in whole about the whole craft beer industry. Wherever you go, if it's here, Minnesota, California, it doesn't matter where, when you go to a brewery into these kind of environments, it's a lot of people who are just there for a lot of the same experiences, but completely different. But when you get everything together, it really is the sense of fellowship, the sense of being there, the sense of, even when I'm in a different city and I go to a brewery, I take pride and ownership in being in that facility and kind of saying, you know, I'm part of this. And everybody who enjoys craft beer and enjoys that whole community spirit can walk into any facility and they still get that same sense of ownership and pride of being, hey, I'm a part of this in one shape, form, or another. And I think that's what's so unique and interesting about our industry, is that's common, that's standard, that's standard operating procedure in almost any brewery you go to. You can go down the street here to Collective or to Hop Fusion or anywhere, and you walk in and you feel a part of the family immediately. You feel like you belong, and that's the real neat thing about the craft beer industry.
And it's great to be part of today, Fritz, and I want to thank you for allowing Between Two Kegs and myself to come and talk with you. I had a great time.
You know, everyone in any industry's got a story, but the neat thing about the craft beer industry is we all have the story, but we all get to talk about it over beer.
That's right.
And that's what makes us unique.
Well, cheers to that. Or should I say Prost, y'all.
Prost, y'all.
Good day. Have a good one, Fritz.
Thank you.
Thank you.